That's girls' chess, isn't it? It attracts breakfast. Oh, sorry. Here we go. Okay. I'll settle down, I promise. If you think that Buddhist nuns should be like walk slowly and talk slowly, I'd be a failure, wouldn't I? So, just as well it's not a requirement. Oh, okay. Whew. Okay, I'm here now. All right. So we're going to talk about, and all of us think about, and that really does include me. I'm talking, but I'm absolutely listening to Buddha's views about the world, about happiness, about suffering. What was our topic today? What did it say?
Stay sane in a crazy world.
Stay sane in a crazy world. That's a variation of yesterday. That's fine. All week. So just okay. Just how to stay crazy. Stay crazy in the same world. How to stay sane in a crazy world. That's the key to success. So the way to listen is it's going to be talk, I'm going to chat away, but try and hear it as advice. Try and hear it as advice. I always say, like, if this was cooking class, and all I did was just rave on about how nice cakes are, you'd be very disappointed if you can get one recipe. So you look for recipes, hear the advice. And the thing is, I always say you can be a 1% Buddhist, so maybe 1% of what you hear might be useful. Fantastic. Take it. Go for it. Because the aim here isn't to believe in what Buddha says and kind of swallow it whole, which is how we tend to think about religion. Not like that. It's up to you. You're the boss, not Buddha. So we're going to do a little prayer that expresses two things. The first two lines are expressing, for those of us in the room who already identify with being a Buddhist, who've kind of committed to our practice, It's reiterating our reliance on the Buddha and his teachings and his methods that we have chosen to use. And the second two lines are expressing, the Tibetans would say it's stating your motivation, or setting your motivation for listening. We might say stating our purpose. Our purpose is to listen to this advice, to see if there's something useful we can take in our lives to help us stay sane in a crazy world, for our sake, but because we live in this crazy world together, for the sake of others. This is the general idea, okay? Sangye charam soke choknabla jangchu parudak nikyam suchi jagi chunyen gi personam ki drola penchir sangye drupasho sangye charam soke choknabla jangchu parudak nikyam suchi jagi chunyen gi personam ki drola penchir sangye drupasho sangye charam soke choknabla jangchu parudak nikyam suchi jagi chunyen gi personam ki drola penchir sangye drupasho. So apparently some of you come to the Tools for Happiness on Sundays, don't you? So I hope you get some tools for happiness. Okay? I hope so. Or being sane in a crazy world. Either way, isn't it? So like we've been talking over all the week I've been here, but we've been talking, but it really is really true to say that tools for happiness, methods for staying sane in a crazy world, whatever. This is really, you could say this is Buddha's expertise. I'm not saying he's the only one who's got this. I'm not saying that. He doesn't own it. But I really would say, that Buddha, Mr. Buddha, 2,500 years ago, this amazing Indian person who came from this amazing tradition before him, extraordinary thinkers, where there's an amazing worldview existing. He was a product of that marvelous society, tradition, philosophy, psychology, extraordinary. The Buddha's expertise, when he comes right down to it, is the human mind, the way the mind works, how the mind works. And maybe this is surprising to us, because when we think of spiritual, we don't say mind. When we think of spiritual, we think of, like I was brought up a Catholic, we think of God, and I'm not being critical here. God is the boss, runs the universe, he's the boss, he punishes, he rewards, he's full of love, he creates the universe, creates me, creates the rules. And so we have faith in God, and that is a perfect way to live your life, I tell you. If you really did have that, you'd be happy. That would be the perfect tool for happiness, and I'm serious about that. If you really put your money where your mouth was and you really had faith in God, knowing that God has a plan, having faith in God, you would be happy. It's extraordinary. But unfortunately, many people who have faith in God always second guess God, don't they, and complain and moan, which is not, because it's not easy. But here the Buddhist view is not this one. That's the point. It's a distinctive difference, a huge difference in a way. Buddha's not a creator. He was a regular guy who became this amazing Buddha, Sangye. Like I said in Tibetan, I said through the week, Sang implies, that the etymology of the word is very delicious. Sang implies the eradication from your being of all the neuroses, all the fears, all the ego, all the misery, all the unhappiness, all the depression, all the anxiety, all the anger. Which psychologically speaking is beyond insane. We just think that's demented in our culture. There's nothing like that in our culture. But hear it clearly, this is exactly what Buddha himself, this regular guy who came out of this extraordinary tradition of spiritual practice already existing, as His Holiness says, was these amazing Indians more than 3,000 years ago, who were the ones who began the investigation into the nature of self. He came into that system and then he diverged in his own direction in relation in particular to his own findings, direct experiential findings about the nature of self. That's the essence of the Buddhist one. And that means they delved into and understood and unpacked and unraveled and mapped the human mind internally. This is inconceivable if you think about it. We map the brain. These dudes map the mind. And then Buddha came out of this, and then that's the Buddhist approach. It's incredibly internal, but not in some mystical way. It's clear, rigorous, disciplined techniques. And so the Buddha's expertise really is the human mind. This is not a joke to say that. It's actually true. But it's surprising, because we don't hear things like this. We don't hear it like that. We hear a spiritual, and then we think of a spirit, a soul, a special extra piece that was given to us by God. Buddhism doesn't talk like that. It's quite different. But if you read traditional Buddhist teachings, it sounds this. It's got the same respect and holiness and sweetness about it when they talk the teachings. You don't hear it in a kind of blunt, modern way. But it's important for us to do that, to unpack it, and to stop mystifying it. It's about knowing. Buddha's deal is to know your own mind, intimately and well. And then to do what? To change it. First, to become the first part of Buddha, Sangye. Buddha's Sanskrit, Sangye is Tibetan. So you develop the first part of the word, Buddha, Sang, rid the mind of all the rubbish. This is your first job, if you like. Well, it's going to come together. The second one is to develop the other part of you to perfection. Buddha says this is the part, love, intelligence, compassion, courage, contentment, joy. These words we know intimately. This stuff for the Buddha, he has found from his own experience, is at the core of our being. This is who we really are. This stuff is indestructibly impossible to get rid of. This is his view, and we don't talk like that in our culture, because we talk about the brain, and it's different. But Buddha's view is very extraordinary. So he's not a creator. He didn't make this up. Like I said yesterday, the only question I've ever had once from one person on the planet, we all asked the same questions, was a scientist in New Zealand who asked who revealed the teachings to the Buddha. It's a perfect question when it comes to religion, because we're used to the creator idea. And now he was shocked when I said nobody. I said he's like Einstein. Everything that Buddha's saying, like Einstein, is coming from his own experience. It's shocking to hear it like this, but this is literally the point. So Einstein doesn't tell us he doesn't tell us he had a vision of it yesterday. He doesn't tell us he had a dream. He's not making it up, and he's not asking us to believe him. We'd chuck him out the door on every count, wouldn't we? Shocked, because that's called science. Well, Buddha's that approach, as surprising as it is to us. As surprising as it is to us, that's the Buddha's approach, because he's not a creator. Hear the meaning of that. Okay, if you have faith in a creator, I'm trying to insult you. Just not Buddha's view, that's all. He's found things to be not like that. That's his experience. And that's why the Dalai Lama says if we people in our culture start to take on board Buddha's teachings, Buddha's methods, then as each step of the way you go, and this is me talking here, the conclusions of His Holiness, each step of the way when you learn something, you experience it for yourself when you verify it, don't you? You pass grade 1, you tick the box. Oh yeah, that's true. Now you go to grade 2. Now you go to grade 3. Well, if you get to grade 47, you've ticked the boxes each way, and you get to the point where you discover Buddha's wrong, then you must reject him. This is surprising to us, because we're so used to this mystical, I believe, everything's holy, woly, wonderful, Well, you understand. But then if we don't like it, we complain and we chuck out God, and we blame God. Italians really abuse God. Any Italians here? Lama Yeshe, they tell me, the Italians tell me, but then I met an Argentinian who said, oh, we really voice the Italians. Lama Yeshe, Lama Yeshe, in 1980-something, early 80s, before he passed away, he was in Italy at the hospital there visiting Geshe Giapagazzo, his dear student who ran this 7-year master's program, our kind of main philosophical program in the FMT. And he was in hospital, in the ward with all the men. And the Italian boys were translating to Lama Yeshe all the rude words that the men were saying about God. I mean, I was a Catholic. You never criticise God. Because God's a pig, apparently. Our Lady's a whore, naturally. Do you understand? The Madonna, you know. There's other words, apparently. Anyway, we don't normally blame God, do we? We love it. Anyway, shush now, calm down. I get carried away sometimes. So we don't blame God. Forget that. But here, the Buddhist view is he does not talk about it very much. His deal, his expertise, and even in this Western world, the best we think about Buddha and the mind is you've got to be mindful. That's about what we think Buddhism is. Well, that's like thinking that playing tennis is bouncing a ball. It's a bit more than that. I mean, that's a minor analogy. The Buddha's expertise is the mind. He doesn't even use the word soul. He uses the word mind or the word consciousness. They're usually used synonymously. So if it's true, think of this as logical. If the end result, when you graduate, if the end result is Sangye, Buddha, rid of all the rubbish, full of all the goodness, this is what Buddha has found, which was pretty shocking, radical, psychologically. Like I say, if one of you is a therapist, I ask you to please give me methods to get rid of all the fears, all the ego, all the depression, and get full of infinite love and compassion for all beings all the time, you'll be seriously worried about my mental health. But this is exactly what Buddha's saying. But we gloss it over and make it mystical, you know. And we think it's in heaven somewhere, so you just have to believe it. Rubbish. Not true. Not the Buddhist view. Okay, there's masses more to it. Like we were talking yesterday, Buddhism's a vast world view, coming from this amazing world view of these Indians. Karma, I joke and say karma wasn't made up by a bunch of hippies in the 60s, you know. It's this massive world view from thousands of years ago in India, from these amazing beings who developed this extraordinary skill that we know vaguely today as mindfulness meditation. These Indians, before the Buddha, they developed this incredible psychological skill that's known as single-pointed concentration, that enables us to completely subdue the grosser levels of conceptuality, all the crazy sensory, all the crazy thoughts and feelings and emotions, go to completely beyond that and access a more subtle level of our own mind that we don't even posit as existing in the materialist world. That's why we think it's mystical. But not. There are people, like I say, this technique is coming from these Indians. The Buddha took it and he diverged in his own direction. It's still existent today, that techniques, it's an extant, real technique that people this moment are accomplishing. People like us, Americans, Australians. It's a living tradition, hasn't stopped for these years. But we don't know about that, we don't think about that. And what they did was, with this amazing technique, because you go deep internal, you completely subdue the crazy mind, that they mapped the mind internally. When you study Buddhist psychology, the way they do in the Tibetan Buddhist monastic university system, which is anything I'm saying in this room is coming from that. Anything you hear from Venerable Tendron, she studied this. She's a graduate of one of our programs in Australia, a 5-year philosophical program where she studied all this stuff. It's huge. You look at the literature, it's mind-boggling. It's so sophisticated, and it's all coming from internal knowledge. We don't think this way in our culture, so it takes us a while to hear it, you know. It's very fascinating. It blows my mind, actually. But like I say, what do we know about the Indians? We love the Greeks, don't we? Well, our fancy words are Greek, aren't they? We love the Greeks. They're the best we can get. Well, I'm sorry, the Indians leave the Greeks for dead, in my opinion. Just in my opinion, okay? And all the stuff we're hearing in this room is coming from there, you know. So because it's Indian, because you read the Tibetans, because you read the Japanese, all these Asians, and because they're so respectful in their tradition, they speak in their own language. And then even in Lama Zopa, our teachers, Tibetan, they speak with respect of that tradition, so they still speak like 14th century people. Because that's the language the texts are written in. That's very respectful. But we have to not just chuck it out and make up new stuff. That's insulting. But it's really important for us, because we're like in this transition period, isn't it? We Western people, we modern technological people who are interested in Buddhism these days. Since the Dalai Lama came into India, you know, came into India from Tibet, it's something there's this massive interest. I think he's one of the main ones who's brought interest into the world, isn't it? Because it's such a different culture. Such a different culture, different way of framing things, different concepts, different worldview, different everything. That it's easy because of this to mystify it. And then because it's religion, we put it even more mystical, you know. That we think it's a belief system, you just believe, oh, I like this, you go around shopping, I like reincarnation, no, I don't like reincarnation, I don't believe in that, I believe in this. That's how we think of religion, but it's sort of insulting, really, ourselves. So it's not a question of believing. You take it, I like to say, I never use the word in my life, I never say believe. I believe in karma, I believe in reincarnation, I never say that purposely. I always say I take it as my working hypothesis, and that sounds grand, but it's literally what any scientist would do. How can you prove relativity until you hypothesize the possibility? You can't just say, oh, I don't believe in relativity, that'd be ridiculous. And you close the door, goodbye. It's just childish. So if you're interested, you don't have to be interested in these ideas. You don't have to be interested in karma. Like we talked yesterday, it's a bigger picture, this big world view of Buddhas coming from these amazing Indians. It's a view that has been around for thousands of years. Buddha's got his own take on it, of course. You don't have to be interested. But if you are, open your mind and listen, and then think it through. First you ought to think it through before it becomes experiential. That's the approach. We're big girls and boys, we can hear things we don't like. And then it might be wrong, it might be right. We've got to be brave enough to hypothesize the possibility of this and that. So like we've been talking all week then, one of the crucial things about the Buddha is his view about the mind. His view of the mind is radically different in many ways, radically different in terms of its actual substance, radically different in terms of the way it works and his take upon how it works, and radically different in terms of the subtlety of it, and radically different in terms of its result, the potential of the mind. It's a whole different view of the mind. But the contents of the mind are words we're familiar with. That's why we think it's just simple and cute. In the West, our psychology now is so complex. Every day, new psychiatric diseases, new volumes of psychiatric diseases. Every day, new concepts. Every day, bipolar, HD, ID, this one, that one, manic. Manic depression is old, now it's called bipolar. And now I think it's called other things. There's so many terms we use, isn't it? It's very fascinating. And you've got to go to psychology school to learn them all. Well, Buddha hasn't changed his tune in 2,500 years. He talks about anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, low self-esteem, love, compassion. And they sound so cute to us. They sound kind of boring. But the Buddhist take on this stuff, because it's internal, is incredibly sophisticated. If you study more in depth, you teach Lyric here? Have you taught Lyric yet? You going to do?
Yes.
I've been talking to Nicole. We're growing the centre. You're going to be
working on
good.
Yes.
So exciting. Good.
Yes.
So then, if you start to, because it's a more advanced teaching, because the teachings, like even at the moment, you've got the highest level teaching. We've got sort of almost like 4 or 5 levels of the core curriculum here, which Nicole's trying to develop, and with Papilian or her helpers trying to grow the centre. And so this one, where you'd study the mind in more depth, that would be like probably to a basic program level, wouldn't it be? Okay. So that's would be like 4th level, but it's fascinating. It's utterly fascinating, but it's so complex, you wouldn't believe it. It's fascinating. Who would ever have thought you could be complex about love? But it's defined in such a precise way. All the states of mind. It's a fascinating model of the mind, and very different from how we think. So you've got to open your mind to it, and once you study it initially, it's just intellectual, it's so complex. I think modern science will be fascinated by the Buddhist model of the mind. But they've got to posit the possibility, they're not talking about the brain, that's the problem. So, okay. While the point for the Buddha is that happiness and suffering, first and foremost, fundamentally, at the main source is in the mind. They point here, the Tibetans. It's kind of interesting. In the mind. So we think, what does that mean? In the mind. In the brain? Well, not for the Buddha. He's not discussing the brain. You ask these dudes back then who were in single point of concentration, in complete bliss, having completely discovered and understood the nature of their mind, you ask them where their brain is, they wouldn't have a clue. They'd never heard of a brain back then. I don't think so. They don't discuss that. That's shocking to us, They've discussed internally. They understand internally the workings of their own mind to a degree of sophistication and clarity that we can't even conceive of in our culture. And that is a fact, actually, not being arrogant, So the Buddha's expertise is to help us go inside. So why would we want to do that? This is the simple question. What's it got to do with happiness, please? Well, because Buddha says, honey child, what's in here is the source of your happiness and suffering. Okay, that's interesting. Well, what is the source of my happiness if it's in here? Well, guess what, folks? It's called love and intelligence and kindness and clarity and contentment and self-confidence. They're states of mind, right? He says, to the extent that they prevail within you is, guess what, the extent to which you are happy. It's not some cosmic statement. Just do your own market research in your own life. You wake up one morning, you're not so angry, you're not so anxious, you're not so depressed, you're fairly empathetic, you're fairly relaxed, you're fairly kind. Guess what? To that extent, you're content, therefore you're happy. It's not rocket science, but we don't join the dots like this. We don't see it this way. We think it's accidental you wake up one day. So then, if suffering, how come that's coming from the mind? What's that mean? Well, guess what? The extent to which you're caught up in anger, attachment, jealousy, anxiety, fear, panic, low self-esteem, you name it, is the extent to which you are miserable. It seems so evident. So why isn't it evident to us? When we hear it, we hear it. But what is our problem in our culture? Why can't we hear it like this? And I'll tell you why. Why are you happy, Robina, today? Sean was so kind to me. So guess what? I'm blaming Sean for my happiness. So for me, the cause of happiness is Sean's kind words. Why are you happy today, Robina? Well, the weather's lovely. So we are saying the weather is the cause of our happiness. We know this. This is so automatic, isn't it? We never question this. Ever, ever, ever. But we should. Remember one day in your life when you woke up profoundly depressed and the weather was beautiful. What happened? How come you're not happy? The weather's beautiful. You got a headache one day, a terrible headache, and that chocolate cake that you're so attached to, the thought of it makes you want to vomit, doesn't it? I had hepatitis once, and just the thought of chocolate cake made me vomit. But then the day before I had hepatitis, chocolate cake was delicious. So excuse me, how come the cake is not the cause of happiness? This is not even meant to be sarcastic, but because we are addicted to that philosophical view, and that's with respect to our the materialist philosophical position of the world, which is the prevailing philosophy in our world, the materialist philosophy. It's not being sarcastic. This is the view of our philosophy. This is reinforced in science and psychology, that my happiness and my suffering are sourced out there. That's why when I go to my therapist, we look back into the past for events that happened. We're looking for a needle in a haystack. We're determined to find what happened back then somewhere in my past, based on my mummy, my daddy, the Catholic nuns, or the rapist, or whatever, that caused me to be fearful now, that caused me to have crummy boyfriends now, that caused me to get angry and jealous. That's our philosophical view. Now, Buddha doesn't argue with that to some degree. Of course the external world plays a role. The world is very interdependent. You can't argue. He says we're missing the main thing, though. This is easy words. This is easy words, but this is why it's so hard, because we are addicted to the view that Sean is the cause of my happiness and the weather is the cause of my suffering. That my mummy's behaviour is the cause of my suffering and my daddy's kindness is the cause of my happiness. Because and also not only that, but they produced me. They created me. If I'm a Catholic, God is the creator. If I'm a materialist, mummy and daddy literally created me. They gave me anger and gave me jealousy and gave me love and gave me kindness, isn't it? That's our philosophical view. So of course we go back to look for the sources there. And of course we then blame. This is our philosophical view. But this is not Buddha's view. He's got a different view. He doesn't argue with that. Mummy and Daddy did have sex, or they got a fallopian. No, they got a petri dish, whichever way to do it. Old-fashioned way, maybe it was in bed, wasn't it? When the egg and sperm came together. Buddha doesn't argue with that. That's true. But his point is, your mind's not the brain, Robina. So they gave you a brain, but they don't give you a mind. They gave you a nervous system, they didn't give you a mind. They gave you a body, they didn't give you a mind. So they didn't give you love, they didn't give you compassion, they didn't give you kindness, they didn't give you a psychosis, they didn't give you attachment to football. And this is the shocking part. And this is why, to even hear this, as a hypothesis, this is the basis in Buddhist philosophical worldview, that your consciousness is not the handiwork of anybody else. If you're a Christian, God made you. If you're a materialist, mummy and daddy made you. They're the only options we know. And in both cases, you began in your mother's womb, didn't you? Not for the Buddha. His view is different. His observation is different. He says our consciousness was from before. It's a beginningless continuity of mental moments that is not in its nature physical. It is not a function of the brain. It works independently with the brain at a gross level, yes. But it's not a function of the brain. This doesn't deny the functioning of a brain, but there's an added component, and this is the massive, massive, massive difference in the Buddha's view. So if you just want to learn to be mindful and learn the techniques that are around the world today that are coming from Buddhism, you don't need to worry about where your mind is, your brain. I don't care if you think your mind's in your toenail. It won't matter. You can still, we know you can still learn to see your mind and calm down a bit and maybe meditate. That's true. And we don't need just to work on your mind. You don't need to know these facts. But this is the bigger picture, and I happen to like the bigger picture, that's all. But give us an explanation of the bigger picture of how come I'm born like this. If mummy and daddy aren't to blame, you've got to find out, or aren't the cause, the main cause of my anger or my kindness or my beauty or whatever, that if it's not a creator, you've got to ask, well, then who is? What is? Well, Buddha says, you are, baby. You're the cause. You came programmed into this life, the Buddha says, at the first second of conception. Programmed not with mummy, daddy, grandma, grandpa, and back to the monkey's tendencies, which is where we look. No. Not with God's. No. With yours. This is the idea of reincarnation. I mean, lots of people like it these days. It's very interesting. Lots of Christians even talk about reincarnation. It's kind of interesting. This is Buddha's worldview. And it's not, as I said, made up by the hippies. It's this vast, complex worldview that's been around even before the Buddha. And where's it come from? The observation of these great beings, you know. Don't believe them. Just take it on board. Look at it. Think about it. The key point here is, as in terms of it being a tool for happiness, the implications of this experientially are so tasty. If it's not mummy and daddy who are the cause, and it was not the events, yeah, they happened. People did abuse me, it's true. People are kind to me, it's true. They are events that did happen. But Buddha says, yeah, that's true. But the main component is my mind. How I receive it now, what I do with it, how I interpret it, and even more, using the karmic one, that I came programmed at the first second of conception with my own tendencies, with my own karmic imprints, as they call it, seeds from my past actions. This is the fundamental principle of this law of karma. And Buddha says it's a natural law. He didn't make it up. It's not from on high. It's not from revelation. He's observed it. Like a wise scientist. He says it's a natural law. And it's a law that just, that runs in the minds and lives of all beings, you know. No one, we think of karma as like a big stick you kind of use to beat yourself and punish yourself. That's how we hear it. Very dualistic. Not like that. It's like botany. It's a natural law. No one runs botany. Okay, if you have a Christian, you believe God does, and that's okay. But in ordinary human terms, physical, materialist terms, botany is a natural law. Given the way the air, the water, the universe is, things grow. You know? That's a natural law. And clever botanists, this is a crucial point, clever botanists didn't create botany. They can't copyright it. They didn't make it up. Hear the difference. They didn't make it up. They observed it. It's already existing. That's what Buddha means. There's no equivalent in Buddhism of God's law, which is what God made up. No concept like that. It's a very powerful point. So if you take this, then Buddha's a regular guy who's observed this. Well, if he's a regular guy and he's observed it, like Einstein, there's his methodology. He says, over to you, baby, now you can do the same thing. That's the approach in Buddhism. So therefore, to blindly swallow it whole. So the two main components, like we've been talking, you know, this lovely analogy Buddhism has. A bird needs two wings, wisdom and compassion. Compassion's the point. Help others, please. Help this crazy universe, you know. But you've got to have wisdom first. Dalai Lama says compassion's not enough. You've got to have wisdom. What's wisdom? That's what you do on yourself. And what we've been talking all the week, the nuts and bolts. And anything you hear from Venerable in this class, I'm quite sure, on Sundays, is coming from the wisdom wing. Mainly, if you're talking about compassion, that's the compassion wing. If you're talking about how to help yourself, that's the wisdom wing. That means to know your own mind, to understand attachment, to understand anger, to understand your fears, to understand anxiety and jealousy, and attempt to slowly become accountable for them rather than thinking, I'm this way because Sean did that. I'm this way because my husband left me. I'm this way because because I've got lovely, kind people. Happiness or suffering, both of them, we think they're coming from the outside. The outside has an effect, but Buddha adds the extra component. The main cause, the main source, is in the mind. And just to add to this, he even says we come programmed at the first second conception, not with mummy, daddy, grandma, grandpa, monkeys' tendencies, which is how we think in the West, not with kind of the energy of God, as the Christians would say, or the Muslims, but with our own past practice. Our own. Because the fundamental law of karma, a natural law that the lives and minds of beings run within every day. The essential law here is, the Buddha says, every millisecond what we think and do and say basically is programming us, is sowing seeds. And seeds that will naturally, when they're nourished and they grow, will ripen as our experiences. The Buddha puts us in charge. Dalai Lama calls it self-creation. It's not a joke, it's a really nice way to put it. But it's a shocking concept because it means we're accountable, we're responsible. Not the blame. We love to say the blame. No, be accountable, responsible. That's nice. I like that. Because if my mummy and daddy are really the cause of all my suffering and happiness, then they've got, all my suffering, they've got to change before I can be happy. That's terrifying, and that's how we think. No, Buddha says, you can change your mind, baby. You can become happy. Happiness is coming from, and what that means in your mind is not complicated. It means which means the way you interpret things. And this gets tricky now, because when you say anger, you don't say that's an interpretation. That sounds like a joke, isn't it? If you say love, we don't think that's an interpretation. But this is the key point. The Buddha's saying that we talked, as you go beyond the emotional component, beyond your physical body, which is when we say feelings. When we say feelings and emotions, we are meaning when our body's involved and we feel it physically. But this is the tip of the iceberg for the Buddha. It's the tip of the iceberg, and the real skill that Buddhist psychology has, and the real skill that meditation is, if we use it properly, there are many misconceptions about it, is that it gives you the ability to go to step out of your crazy head, to get a little bit of focus, and you can start to go to listen, deeper level, listen to the stories, the conceptual stories that are raging on from the second we wake up till the second we go to sleep, right? They're there like the sound, like what we call white noise. It's a weird phrase. But there's chaos, isn't it, underneath all the time, there. And when the emotions are strong, that's when some of those stories are coming to the surface, and they vomit out the mouth, and you've got tears and crying and all the dramas, you know? Good morning. Good morning. She dragged you along, did she?
Yes, she did.
Reluctantly. I'm so sorry. Well, I give you permission to go any time you like. Ignore her. I know. So anyway. Okay.
White noise.
Okay. So let's look then. Okay. I got distracted. I distracted myself.
White noise.
What was I saying?
White noise.
Oh, thank you very much. We all know, isn't it? From the second we wake up in the morning until the second we go to sleep, we know on one part of us is on autopilot. We don't forget how to get a cup of coffee. We don't forget to put the leg down on the floor and then the next leg. You don't wake up brand new. We've got to learn how to walk again. We're programmed. We're on autopilot, aren't we? So we follow, we get the coffee, we go to the toilet, we do this, we do that. But we know underneath is this non-stop, unedited, crazy, thousands of thoughts. Even Western psychology, they say we've got 1,000 thoughts a second, you know, isn't it? And that's stuff we call our unconscious. We leave it alone. But you see, the interesting point, the Buddhist approach to the mind is that every single thing any being observes through our senses and internally, without even any awareness. It's like Geshe Tashi in London said, one of our teachers in London, he said every second it's like we're shooting a movie. The camera's on all day and everything gets stored in our consciousness. It's all there. The imprints are there. So talk about unconscious. Talk about this life just alone. The stuff we've seen, heard, thought, touched, smelled, tasted. It's all gone programmed into our consciousness. And that becomes our unconscious. And this way, as we're talking here, the Buddhist view about continuity of consciousness from before, can you imagine the depth of our unconscious? Remember this, again, this skill the Buddhists talk about that came to these amazing Indians 3,000 years ago, is that we can harness that energy, this amazing concentration skill. It's called single point of concentration. It is not religious. It's a brilliant psychological skill. But because it's couched in religious terms, you come to these holy places with, you know, statues and... this leaves the Catholics for dead, doesn't it? Look at it, you know? That we get confused with this religion. But this is psychological. This is this ingenious skill that enables us to focus this mind of ours, this berserk, crazy, uncontrolled mind, and plumb the depths of our own consciousness. Don't hear it as mystical, please. A communist could do it. It's a brilliant psychological skill, and it's something that Buddha would say is fundamental for our sanity. Of course it is. Look at us, we're so berserk. We follow, you know, we're not aware of 99.9%, even as much as today. It's now, 12 o'clock, whatever it is. We talk about not remembering a past life, let's say. Well, don't be ridiculous. You can't remember 99% of today. Isn't it? It all goes in one ear and out the other, because we're on autopilot. So it's all stored, though. So that's the unconscious. And we know sometimes when it's sort of a bit like, I think it's a bit like, oh, hang on, I've got to drink my chai before it gets too cold. Excuse me. Okay. If there's a football field or some sports arena, and you hear a distance from a mile away, you'd hear this roar, wouldn't you? Now you know it's the sports arena. And you know it's 100,000 voices all shouting at once. But it's a roar, isn't it? It's a sound, a roar. You don't hear 100,000 individual voices, do you? It's a good analogy. That's our mind. Underneath. We're on autopilot. It's tip of the iceberg. Eat, sleep, go to the toilet, as the Tibetans would put it. On autopilot. We're not conscious. And it's not being religious here. But then what happens? You know? Can I know your name? Tracy's friend?
Mark.
Mark. Let's say, you know, Tracy forces Mark to come to this wretched place. Just joking here, just talking. So there's Mark, having things Sunday morning, going to relax. His wretched friend drags him along here. So he's trying to be nice to Tracy. He doesn't want to he doesn't want to alienate her too much. Because, oh, all right. Excuse me, Mark, I'm just joking. So what I'm getting at is real simple. He's relaxed and okay, gets up in the morning, but he's got an unconscious like the rest of us. All got our own crazy thoughts as we're born. Buddha says even before we're born. Or undealt with junk. Forget Mark now, it's getting too personal. I'm not talking about you, Mark. I'm talking about myself. It's all undealt with, isn't it? Like we talked yesterday, things happen throughout the day. The noises come, you get annoyed. You break the cup, you get annoyed. The person talks too loud, you get upset. The person says kind to you, you get happy. But we don't deal with it. It's all stored. Everything's stored. This is what unconscious means. Not paying attention to it. So then suddenly, because I've got a tendency to be angry since I was born, my mummy didn't have to teach me. I came with it, right? This is the idea. So then as soon as something happens that isn't what I want, then it explodes out the mouth. So what happened was, one of these voices, these 100,000 voices, suddenly gets louder than all the others. And then it shoots out the mouth. Oh, I must be angry. Now our problem in our culture is this. It's a bit like we're driving on the freeway at 100 miles an hour and you notice your wheels are falling off. Now, we never hear of wheels falling off, do we? Very rare. Because we know we have maintenance. We go, and it's not kidding. We have maintenance. We have people we go to not just, are my wheels falling off, but to ensure they won't fall off. We deal with it before the problem comes. But in our culture, because we're so addicted to the outside world being the cause of our problem, and we're so addicted to not noticing what's happening in our mind, we only notice what's happening in our mind when one of those 100,000 voices underneath there, which is rumbling along with all the others unheard, suddenly, when something happens that I don't like, it rises to the surface and explodes out my mouth. Oh, I'm angry. Well, that's the wheels falling off. And then you go, what do I do? I'm angry. Well, it's a bit late. What do I do? Damage control is the best you can expect. Hear the analogy. It's powerful. So you would never wait till your wheels fall off before you go to the mechanic. But why do we go to a therapist? Because the wheels are falling off. That's what we think about in meditation. One of the many misconceptions about mindfulness meditation is it's an alternative to a pill. So if I'm in love with my new boyfriend, Sean, and we're blissfully happy, and someone says you should meditate, what are you talking about? I'm happy. So we assume it's a technique you use when your wheels are falling off. But it's too late. It's really difficult to deal when you're having a mental breakdown. Look at us. So if we begin this is a practical thing. If you use this simple, even a tiny amount of what so-called mindfulness is, which is this technique to focus. Okay, it is not a technique when the wheels are falling off. It is not an alternative to a pill. It is not to make all the thoughts go away. And why we want all the thoughts to go away? Because it's so painful. So it's not that. That's not his purpose at all. It's like hilarious to think that. It's not to get a vision or a blissful experience. These are the misconceptions, the naive assumptions we have about mindfulness meditation. So many misconceptions. It's a practical psychological skill that you sit down for a few minutes at the beginning of the day and you decide to go to focus on your boring old breath. There's nothing holy about breath. Buddha taught that because it's practical, it occurs naturally. So you anchor your mind to the breath. For 3 minutes, you decide you're going to watch your boring old breath. What for? Not to be holy, not to have a vision, not to make all the pain go away. No, none of that. It's simply a skill that you're learning. So you step out of your head for a couple of minutes, or you attempt to, so that you can gradually not only not make the thoughts go away initially, that's insane. Long term, yeah, when you really get developed, when you've harnessed the mind to such a degree, you will go to these more subtle levels where you go literally beyond conceptual, but you know what you're doing here, and you're really on the case. But in the beginning, not only do you not want the thoughts to go away, you actually want to become familiar with the thoughts And why would you want to do that? Because you want to start the job of distinguishing between the chaotic thoughts, the anger, the fears, the jealousy, the resentment that are all underneath, and distinguish between those and the good roommates in you. I think it was my roommates. Got these 100,000, 1,000 a minute. No, 1,000 thoughts a moment is what the West says. Buddha agrees. And we can't tell one bit from another until one gets stronger. Like one voice in that 100,000 football field shouts louder than everybody else. Now you can hear it. Well, that's when it hits the surface, which is our body. That's why it's easy to know someone's angry, because you see them shouting and yelling, spitting, with the tears coming, the spit coming out of the mouth, shaking and yelling, and saying crazy, demented words. But what about you? What if you get depressed? You don't notice you're depressed until your body feels it, which is when one day you wake up and you're inert because you can't. But it's taking a long time, and it might take 50 years for you to gradually hit your body and for the emotions to hit your body to notice that you've got a problem. That's way too late. So Buddha's skill is so practical. It's to learn to become familiar with what the hell is going on. And this amazing human mind of ours. This is a massive job. Don't hold your breath. It could take a long, long time. But we've got to start the process. And this takes courage, because you've got to hear your crazy thoughts. You've got to think. In the text they describe this concentration technique back in these Indians 3,000 years ago who invented it. Coming home. They say in the text, it's described in the text in terms of 9 stages of cultivation. And they all say in the texts that a sign of success at the first of the 9 stages. And in this life, most of us won't even get to the first stage, even if we seriously start to practice. So this is a really amazing technique, very sophisticated. But the sign of success at even the first of the 9 is you think your mind's getting worse. That's like you go to the gym. There you are, 20 pounds overweight, floppy, no muscle, but you're relaxed, you feel cool. You go to the gym for the first time, you come home shocked with muscles you didn't know you had, right? So naturally, and you've got pain you haven't had before. So if you didn't understand what goes on at the gym, you'll go freaked out, thinking you're getting worse, right? But you know it's good pain. You know how to interpret the pain. It's the same here mentally. That means we've got to have courage to want to be aware of what is happening in my mind. So this really is advanced, because we're way before that. We live in the world of blaming everybody else. It's not my fault, it's the world, and the world can be horrible. The world is full of hideous things, there's no doubt. Look at this country alone, the suffering of prisons, for example. The injustice, unbelievable. I don't want to go on about it. The racism in this country, the sexism, whatever word you like. It's the world. It's how it is. Not surprising. The world is outrageous. People do shocking things to each other. There's no doubt about that. But the shocking point is that Buddha's saying, fine, if you can there's a saying, like I said last week in the week, if you can change something, please change it. Great, if I can get my boyfriend Sean to stop being mean, please stop being mean, Sean. Okay, Robina, I'll be happy, right? If you can get the cake you want, fine. If you can change the red light to green light, go for it. But we know we can't every time. So we believe that happiness and suffering come from out there. Don't hear it as holy. If we believe that I'll only be happy when I get the green light, you'll be living in hell. If you believe you're only happy when Sean's sweet to you, if you believe you're only happy when the weather comes, if you believe you're only happy when everybody adores you, and this is what we all crave, then that's why we live in hell, because we can't guarantee it'll happen. That's why I like talking about experiences of my friends in prison. I talk about back in, 95, 6 it was, when I was living in California, editing a Buddhist magazine. And this dude, Arturo, young Mexican from Los Angeles, been in the gangs, he told me. He was 18, been in the gang since he's 11. In prison since he's 12. In and out, juvenile, then 16, 3 life sentences. He didn't kill anybody. He didn't rape, he didn't kill, but the sentencing is so nightmarish. I'm allowed to criticise America, by the way. I got my passport in 2006. And I promised I'd bear arms. I did. I promised. I said I'd bear arms. I just spelled it differently. And I even said to the woman, she was very sweet, she was married to a Nepalese man, so as soon as she saw me, she wanted to be very professional, but she sort of showed me her name, Mrs. Shrestha. She's white, but she wanted to show that she had a Nepalese husband, but she was very professional, She couldn't be sort of partisan. So anyway, I answered all the questions. They have to pass tests and say who the president was and what time was this, and you have to answer questions, right? So I said to her, can I keep my other passports? Because I'm Australian and British as well. She said, we don't mind how many passports you've got as long as you have allegiance for the United States. So I have to feel like an American, okay? So I'm allowed to criticise America because I'm an American. So, the prison system here, this is all sort of tools for happiness. I'm getting off the topic, but never mind. So, you know that it's a given, it's an accepted number, I read in The Economist, that this country has 5% of the world population, but it's got 25% of the prison population. That means a quarter of all humans on the planet who live in a prison live in America. American prisons. And I'm sorry, they're getting worse. There's no question that the numbers are going up. Did any of you see that incredible documentary on Netflix, 13th?
Yes.
The 13th Amendment. That amazing movie maker. She made, what she make 12 Years as a Slave? What's her name? Ava DuVernay. What's her name? Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes.
That's the one, thank you. This incredible documentary about the prison, the justice, the prison system and racism. It's unbelievable, blowing. If you're on Netflix, please watch it. It is mind-blowing about this shocking, the horror of this, this country. I mean, what to do? We all know the truth of it. So anyway, there's Arturo. He calls himself AJ now. He's been in prison since he's 12. He's now 40, and he got out this year because things are happening in California. I think with Jerry Brown, laws are changing a bit, and it's a whole bunch of my friends, all the poor ones. There's only poor people in prison. Believe me, the rich ones don't stay long. I promise. Unless they're psychos. I've never met a rich person on death row yet. Okay. Always the poor people. Blows my mind. Blows my mind. So AJ finally found lawyers, these kind lawyers who offer their services. Only because you got a lawyer, you go through this nightmarish system. He finally got out after 20 years of his life in prison. He didn't kill anybody. They're just like heavy-duty rules anyway. So my point, getting to the point. He wrote a letter. Within a year I had 40 people writing from prison. So I just sent Buddhist, they heard about us, we sent Buddhist books, that's what we did, we sent Buddhist books. Then we give them mentors and they wrote to people. Some became serious Buddhists, they take refuge on the phone, they'd be sitting there in their orange jumpsuit with their hands like this on the telephone and they're taking refuge. It was so moving, So many prisoners took refuge in the prison. So many people, so very moving to me. So the key one, the point I'm getting at here is, they couldn't change anything. They could not open that door and get out. They couldn't change anything. But the ones who became, different ways, good practitioners, used these Buddhist tools that we were giving them, they knew they could change their mind. I always tell that story about the woman in Florida, in prison. 30, she's a hippie, back in the 70s, this white woman. Hitching with a hippie husband, with the hippie kids, and got picked up by two blokes, and then got the blokes stopped by the cops, and the two blokes killed the cops and blamed the hippies. So they're on death row. So you try and imagine, think of things that have happened to you in your life, people have accused you of something you didn't do. Well, they're accused of murdering two police. Of course, if you're a cop killer, you're the worst animal on the planet. This is how it is, So they were treated like hell on earth in the prisons. The husband got executed. Try and hear it, please. Can't conceive of the pain. You can't imagine it. But this woman, I think she did yoga and stuff. I think she wasn't a Buddhist. But this woman seems to be so astonishing, such intelligence, such courage. And all I'm getting at is she wasn't a Buddhist, she did yoga. But this is the Buddhist point. This is what Buddha says. This is his deal. It's what he's found. You can't change something, then you don't have to go crazy, you can change your mind. That's the part that's so simple, but beyond the most difficult job we'll ever do. Because we are addicted to the outside world as the cause of our suffering. And when it's something like that, the way we think of it is this: we believe we're justified in being crazy. So my point is this: in her memoir, I read her memoir quickly, because she's out of prison now. She's so sweet. She was in for 17 years. She got out. She went to Ireland one year and was participating in an Amnesty International conference, and she met this Irish guy who'd also been in prison in England, in Ireland, and accused of killing two British policemen during all the Troubles, So they met, fell in love, and now they're living in Cork. They're old now, old and both white, pink-faced, fat, kind, dear people. I thought, it's not meant to be me. Sweet people, dear, good human beings, running a retreat centre near Cork, helping people who've come out of prison who are wrongly accused, doing retreats. I mean, these kind human beings. So she said, in prison, This is my point now. All of this is my point. At some point, I realized I couldn't change anything, but they couldn't take my mind from me. So I decided, I'm not a prisoner, I'm a monk. I'm not in a cell, I'm in a cave. Now, we love to hear things like that. It's so kind of wow, it blows our mind. But just put yourself even remotely like that and look at our ordinary life, our own life, and the fact is we are not in prison. Nobody is forcing us as slave labour in our job. Nobody is forcing us to stay with our lousy partner. But it's as if we feel we are imprisoned. And I'm not being mean about us. This is the shock about our minds. We imprison ourselves. Don't hear me being sarcastic. We're overwhelmed by fears and blame, and it's not fair, and I can't leave my job, I might get another job. Or no, I couldn't leave my husband, he really does love me. Then he keeps beating you up, he really does love me. You're so naive, you're so stupid. He might change, but you don't. So not only do you realise you could leave the husband, you could leave the job, you could leave your sister, if you can't handle it, if it's overwhelming and suffering for you, because you can't handle, don't blame them. You could leave, but we don't realise we can leave. And the worst part is, we don't realise we can change our attitude towards it. But that's what my friends in prison do. They change theirs, like that woman. She saw prison differently. But we hear that and we think, but excuse me, that's like ridiculous. It's like being Pollyanna, we think. She's being stupid. I read at the same time as some dude who was also on death row, also innocent. It's so common now. We hear every day all these people working in justice programs, people coming out after 25 years on death row and 25 years in prison, wrongly accused. It's like hell on earth, Because everything's so political in this country. It's so heavy. It's just beyond shocking. But this guy was also innocent. And he went completely crazy. Now, we think that's normal. Meaning, what we mean by normal is that you'd be weird if you didn't act like that. So the way we talk is, he is allowed to be angry. Look what they've done to him. We say that, don't we? So with ourselves, and this seems heavy, we justify our right to be jealous, our right to be anxious, our right to be depressed, our right to be angry. In other words, putting the Buddhist take on it, we are so disconnected from our own pain. Because our philosophy says someone else did it. What do you mean I should change? I didn't do anything wrong. He should change. Is this not how we talk? But all the Buddha's saying is, hey babies, can you please see how you're breaking your own heart here? But it's too hard, because we've got this deep philosophy inside us that says, I didn't ask to get born, it's not my fault, everything that happens is not my fault, I'm allowed to be angry, I'm allowed to be anxious, I'm allowed to be stressed, and it's your fault, and I'm going to sue you. And then we think, then I'll have closure when you go to prison. Well, everybody finds you don't have closure, because guess what? You're still with your own anger and rage, because we don't realise our own anger and anxiety and rage and despair are the source of the pain, not the rapist. This is extreme. Not the person accusing you of death row, of killing 2 policemen. This is shocking to hear. But we can hear it in a kind of powerful way. This is what Buddha means by liberation, not some fancy religious word. Nirvana, the cessation of suffering and its causes. And his deal is, all this is the human mind, and we can learn to unpack and unravel and reconfigure these crazy conceptual stories that are roaring underneath, that inform our day-to-day behaviour, It's a hard job. First step is, I'd like to try that. Maybe it's possible I can change my mind. Maybe it is possible my anger is the main cause and not Sean. You've got to first own that, and that's the hardest part. And that's not easy, because we're addicted to it. So I go around all these Buddhist centres. I mean, people like you and me, good little Buddhists trying to be holy, all fighting and blaming each other the same. We're all human, It's like a very deep habit. We run like a magnet to blame. We can't help it. We just can't help it. So to actually have the courage to, yes, my husband's a creep. Yes, Sean's a creep. But there's something in the relationship, maybe we're prepared to work on it. That takes enormous courage, like the woman in prison. She couldn't undo that door, baby. But she changed her mind. But the point is, too, she didn't become passive. She never stopped working on her freedom. She got out after 17 years. She never stopped working on her freedom, but she changed her mind as well. This is the source of sanity in a crazy world. The hardest job we'll ever do. But every word here we can hear. This is not religion. This is not belief. We've got to unpack it. It's not easy, but this is the essence of it. So now you can ask me questions. Come on. Ask me some questions now, if you'd like. Yes, Sean? You be nice. Go on.
Let me see here. If you are somebody who has been diagnosed with a mental health disorder...
By diagnosed by whom? Just let me tell you something. Okay. You mean like called bipolar, all this rubbish? Well then, Buddha says we're all bipolar. Sean?
Yes.
I'm not being sarcastic. Hear me. From the Buddhist perspective. Do you have attachment?
Yes.
Craving this and you get upset and go up and down like a yo-yo when you don't get it?
Sometimes.
Thank you. That's called attachment and aversion.
Yeah.
Join the club.
Exactly.
Well then, so what's your problem?
So
You're bipolar like the rest of us. What's your problem
You
then?
have to take a pill for something.
No, you don't. You didn't hear what I said. You didn't hear what I said. You didn't hear what I said. You're agreeing too easily. I'm telling you without sarcasm that the Buddha's analysis of our mind with attachment, which is constantly craving nice things, and then aversion or despair up and down like yo-yo when it doesn't get it, that's what we call bipolar, roughly speaking. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
You said before you did hear me. Now, Buddha doesn't suggest a pill, does he? Have you heard of Buddhist pills?
No.
What's the Buddhist solution?
Practice.
No, did you hear what I've been saying all day? What's practice?
Going against the aversion and the...
Yeah, good, so thank you. So then who says you have to take a pill?
My psychiatrist.
Excuse me, you're your own psychiatrist.
I am my own.
Well, then make a
So I have
decision.
to take a pill.
So you make a decision.
Yes.
Why do you have to take a
So,
pill? You're not listening to me, Sean.
Yes.
I'm asking you. I'm not saying you shouldn't take a pill. But why don't you decide that you can use other tools to help yourself and you don't have to take a pill? I'm just suggesting. Have you ever thought of it?
I have considered that, but
Well, good. Well, slowly, as you work on your mind, you'll be able to go without the pill, won't you?
I don't know.
Well, that's up to you to find out. I'm not saying you should. Nothing wrong with pills. There's nothing wrong with having a tool.
I know. So
There's nothing wrong with it.
In a way where it's like you're putting the premium oil in your car.
No, just
There's
keep it simple.
nothing-
Sean, just ask
the
me a
vehicle.
Just, Sean, don't get too clever.
Okay.
Just ask me a question or say, what are you saying? What's the question here? We've got a question. I jumped in all the time. What's the question?
My question's falling apart.
I know, I'm sorry. I interrupted. No, okay. Please forgive me. I'm not saying psychiatrists. I think there are amazing doctors on this planet. I think pills are really helpful. There's no question. I'm trying not to hear my point. I'm not being fundamentalist like Tom Cruise saying go against all psychiatrists. I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to say is we have all these labels in the West.
Labels, that's the thing.
No, nothing wrong with
Label
no.
and boxes.
Who's saying this? Where are you? Nothing wrong with labels. What's your name?
Sony.
Sony's a label.
Joni.
Zony's a label.
Sony.
Sony.
Yeah.
Sony. Oh, Joni. Joni is a label because you're not Robina. We'd be all confused if you go, where's, that one with the green trousers. And that's called Joni, okay? That's a label, darling. But the problem is over-concretizing the label.
Right.
Giving wrong, ridiculous interpretations of the label.
Right.
That's the problem. Don't check out the label, but it's
Okay.
over-exaggerating the meaning of the label. So I can see, okay, this is like confession time now. I'm always confessing to you. So back in the 60s, I've got a very big, we've got I told you, a lot of siblings. Remember I talked about my siblings and how we're all very harmonious now. There are 7 of us. 6 girls and a boy. Like I said, the whole suburb celebrated when Tony got born. My daddy was so excited. So anyway, the point is, what I'm saying is, in the 60s, 3 of my sisters, like one after the other, my mum was busy, all had mental breakdowns. I mean, severe. Well, we were all diagnosed as manic depressive. A lot of us. I think the doctor found he thought he'd won the lottery, getting an entire family. Well, these days it's called bipolar. And I know that all of us were. Those days they gave lithium. A very sweet, was a lovely psychiatrist, an amazing human being, really kind psychiatrist. So none of my sisters now take any drugs. One of my, but I remember I was an old radical lefty at the time, dealing with. I remember in the 60s and the 70s I was sort of a radical communist and then a lefty, and then I was dealing with at the time of the 60s. For some reason, a friend of mine was a literary agent for George Jackson. Remember George Jackson of the Soledad Brothers back in the early 70s? The Soledad Brothers, remember them? No? You don't remember? California, okay? And then my friend was his literary agent, so we started a group in London called the Friends of Soledad, so we're dealing with the Black Panthers. I know I'm not black, but never mind. With the support group, we had demonstrations and all that kind of business. We even invited James Baldwin to come, George Jackson's mummy came, we had big talks in London. I was doing all this stuff, right? So I was completely cynical about stupid looking psychiatrists and all this rubbish. So I went home to the family to see them. My mother wanted me to go to the psychiatrist, so I got included in the list of, with this disease, they're so-called. So I remember thinking he can go, I'm not interested in this boring old label, screw him and his stupid, and I thought, if I've got a crazy mind, I can handle it, baby. Are we communicating here? Who hasn't got a crazy mind? I mean, please, but we're so scared of looking crazy. I just don't mind looking crazy, that's all. Do you understand? Wait. Cecilia, hang on a tick. I know I joke about things, but I'm not trying to be sort of stupid, But when I've heard the Buddhist view, right down to the basics of how I'm talking this morning, that for me was powerful. that yes, we need support, we need friends, we need help, because some people are completely crazy, really extremely out of their minds, who need serious help, and please help them. It's all, but the Buddhist approach is, you see, our view is down this end, they're the crazies. They've got the labels. But here, I'm normal. Well, the Buddha's view of normal is way more advanced than ours. He says we're all mentally ill, and I'm not being sarcastic, I'm using our modern words. We're all bipolar. We're all got personality disorders. Please hear my words. And they're called attachment, anger, anxiety, panic, jealousy, low self-esteem, arrogance. And the Buddha's expertise is understanding those deeply, really deeply, understanding the workings of these states of mind. So and we've all got these to one degree. It's a question of degree. That's all. It's a question of degree. And I'm really not being sarcastic when I say things like that. But we don't hear Buddhism saying these things. We have all these weird phrases like afflictions, you know. I mean, it's like, are we communicating a bit here? Mm-hmm. So the point is, the Buddha says we have got this potential to be unbelievably, astonishingly balanced, loving, kind, less neurotic, less anxious, less depressed. Use every tool we can, including pills. But so the attitude to pills will be that helps. So okay. The physical, the materialist one talks about some imbalance in your chemicals, isn't it?
Yes.
That's right. Well, you go to your Tibetan doctor who uses this ancient model that the Indians use. They talk about the it's like the yoga one. She will feel your pulses, and she'll feel all these subtle wind energy, prana, wind energy. This is a really sophisticated world model. It's been around for centuries with the Indians, and the Tibetans have it too. They understand the subtle physical energies. So she'll feel your pulses, and she'll feel an imbalance of certain wind energies that are connected to your attachment. That makes your mind completely berserk, out of control, going up until the bubble bursts. And then when the bubble bursts, you go crashing down, right? And then you become despairing or whatever. So she'll feel your pulses, and feel the imbalance of these wind energies. Instead of chemicals, she'll give you a herbal pill. This is a centuries-old system that'll balance your wind energies, and because that's connected to your attachment and your anxiety, that will calm down. So it has the same effect. But the point in the Buddhist one is, take your pill, but now the real work starts, working on your mind, because now you've got the space. But if you keep saying, I'm bipolar, I've got to take a pill, I've got a mental illness, then it's concrete, it's solid, set in stone, and you never can change.
Right. So
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Okay.
I should
John?
be so grateful.
What?
For having the opportunity to calm that stuff so I can face it.
What?
I guess.
Start again. What's the question?
My question was, well, I don't have to look at it like it's some pill that I have to take for the rest of my life. It's just giving me an opportunity to chill out the
If you've got a headache, take a pill. It'll help you calm down. If you're too hot, you come out of the sun. If you're too cold, you put the heater on. There are always conditions external to help you. But the bottom line is, whatever you do, whatever tools you use, if you have a good friend, you go to a therapist, the point of it is to help you become more familiar with your mind. And then by becoming familiar with your mind, which is not set in stone, but because of the relationship between your mind and your body, but you changing your thoughts, which is your mind, that'll affect your body. And that's when you don't, I'm not saying you have to give up your pill, don't misunderstand me, but don't set it in stone. Oh, I've got like you got one leg or something. I've got only one leg. I've got bipolar, like set in stone. It's a movable, shiftable thing, and it starts with your mind. Use every tool you can, but it's your mind, Sean. Are we communicating?
Yes.
Cecilia, what's on?
You can kind of answer the question, telling him not to identify.
That's right. We over-identify. That's what Joni means about labels. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. But
That's
the thing is that my fear here is that my understanding is the mind uses the brain, a completely organ like my heart or my liver or any part of my body that can fail.
Yes. So
can fail. So sometimes your brain does fail in some people. And
but that's right. It does. So what are you saying?
But then the mind.
But that's not your mind.
That's not my mind.
It's not your mind.
But don't you agree that maybe by a person having an organ that is failing, it's more difficult for them?
Of course it is. No, there's no doubt. But what I'm getting at, what I'm getting at is, when we think brain, we think anger is in the brain.
No.
Anger is when your brain or your chemicals or your physical component, the way the world talks, is out of whack, like your heart doesn't work, then you've got to adjust it, do things to adjust it.
Right.
Yes, but the same here. The same with the Tibetan doctor. You'll take your herbal medicine to calm down the physical component, which helps your mind.
Right.
So yes, be practical, but don't be when it relates to mental states. Some people we can see on this planet are seriously mentally ill. They can't be left on their own. They've got to be protected and given pills and support and love. There's no doubt. And that includes psychos. One of my friends on death row in Kentucky. He's thick, as my friend Mitch, who's a Buddhist there. Mitch says, I'm ready for that electric jolt. My last meeting with him, because he'll have his death date in a couple of years. He had a gun 30 years ago with a friend, and they did drugs, and you have guns, you have drugs, guess what? People die. You know, he's not a monster or anything, people die. He's a white southern boy. So he's done all his appeals, he's getting ready for his death date. This is Mitch, okay, Mitch. He's a Buddhist, he's a beautiful human being. He's really so good to all the people. He says, one of my friends there, and I met the guy, I go give talks, and he comes. This other white boy. And he sits there, and you see him real quiet, relaxed, this other guy. And Mitch says, Robina, he thinks about torture all the time. So using the big picture Buddhist view, he comes into this world with his crazy states of mind, and he's tortured all his life. So we of course think he's evil, he's a monster, send him to hell, you know. But he's extremely mentally ill. You're only mildly mentally ill, okay? Sean? He's extremely mentally ill. He's really got problems. So you can't ask him to do bloody mindfulness and change his mind. The habits are too strong. The poor guy's really suffering. So I'm not happy he's on death row, but I'm happy he's got among people he doesn't want to torture, and he can't torture. So he thinks of torture, or that's a seriously mental illness, and his mind is so deluded, he can't do much himself. So protect him. You've got a crazy kid, you protect them from themselves. But some of us, you included, we've got the skill. Take our pills, take our support, have our good friends, have a therapist. But the job is to know our own mind and change it, because mind means your thoughts. Mind is conceptual stories that inform our emotions. Do you understand?
Right.
So I agree with you, of course, totally. Because all these are interdependent, you know. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yeah.
Venerable Robina,
Yes,
for
yes.
For me it's not yet clear what is the concrete antidote against anger and attachment.
The exact opposite.
What?
Okay, listen, if we analyse,
What's the recipe?
I'm telling you, to understand it, we have to know what anger is.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to basics here. In the Buddhist model, like we talked during the week, you know, we've got, this is this distinct model. This is not, which you've heard before, Wolfgang, but I'm going to give you the background. This is not how we talk in our culture as well. All the thousands and thousands of thoughts and emotions and feelings and unconscious and subconscious in here. It's like this massive super stuff, isn't it? Some are more gross level, some are more subtle. And do you understand? We all get that, right? And it's uncontrolled most of the time. We're not aware of it till it's coming out the mouth. We're not aware of it till you can't get out of bed one morning. Or you're not aware of it till Sean really kills you because we're not paying attention to it. So, okay, we can divide all of these into three categories of states of mind. Like we talked. One lot are the neurotic, deluded, ridiculous, over-the-top, ego-based, crazy rubbish. We know the words, like I said. Attachment, anger, fear, jealousy, pride, low self-esteem, you name them. Then you've got the other stuff. The virtuous ones, like I've been saying. Love, compassion, kindness, intelligence. These words are so simple we can't hear them. There's the third lot, never mind those for now. That's like, I call them the mechanics of the mind. Concentration, good memory, practical stuff. Whether you're a sniper or a meditator, you need good concentration. Whether you're a sniper or a meditator, you need good memory. You don't forget what you're doing. Oh, who was I shooting? Which one was it? Oh, wrong guy, sorry. No. You've got to have good concentration, good mindfulness. They're technical parts of our mind. They're not good or bad, they're necessary. So, the stuff we're concerned with, and this is the Buddhist model, we don't talk like this in modern psychology because it sounds like judgment. Or you're bad, you're good. No, they're negative, neurotic, deluded, painful states of mind. The Buddha says if we really get in touch with them, break our hearts. We should not be guilty about it. And they've got the good stuff. So now, Wolfgang's question. In order to answer it, I have to just tell you about the three main states of mind. As we know, in the Buddhist literature, they're called the three poisons. It's a cute phrase. The root one, the mother of them all, it's like a hierarchy, I would say. The root one, the mother of them all, that's so subtle we don't have an equivalent in our culture. But it's this sense, this ridiculous, fear-based, deeply instinctive, neurotic sense of a me, a separate, bereft, lonely me. That's panic-stricken, that's deeply ingrained. That's the deepest one. On the basis of that, its main voice. Day-to-day life, main voice of that is called attachment. This cute word. Don't use our definition. Buddha's is this maniac junkie in us. So subtle, so constantly there, it's as a level of assumption. This little junkie. And this little junkie runs the show. It is frantic every second to get what I want every second. That's its job. Now to your question. And the millisecond that attachment doesn't get what it wants, that is when the opposite one arises, which is called aversion. So the most simple way of putting it, attachment's like looking for the delicious thing. Oh, there it is. Oh, that's lovely. It's like magnetized by it. You run towards it. The second, the thing that pops up in front of you, one of your five senses, for example, isn't the object your attachment wants, then panic attack comes. That's called aversion. Now, there's a whole spectrum of responses of aversion, which is the response when attachment doesn't get what it wants. All the way from volatile anger, that's my style, shout and yell, kick and punch when attachment doesn't get what it wants, easy to see it. And then it goes less violent, and that's just ordinary life. Annoyed, irritated, upset, frustrated, anxious, worried. They're all variations, all on this spectrum of aversion, which is the response when attachment isn't getting what it wants, when the junkie isn't getting its fix. The nice cake, the nice sound, the nice thing, the green light, the lovely word, the pleasant things. It's a junkie for the pleasant, nice things. It can't bear anything but the nice things, this attachment. So it's frantic. But this is so subtle we don't notice it until it's gross. So, when we understand, and then also from then all the spectrum from anger, irritation, annoyance, frustration to despair and depression, and includes guilt. This is the spectrum of aversion, which is the opposite of attachment. Not the opposite, but it's the response when attachment doesn't get what it wants. This is a sort of powerful way of talking about these simple, cute states of mind, attachment and anger, So, if anger is a panic attack when it doesn't get what attachment wants, then obviously the opposite is to greet it. Not go, oh no, horrible, to go, wow, I can handle this. That's patience. So patience isn't like this repressing. The way we think of patience is like passive aggression, pushing your teeth until this horrible thing goes away. That's passive aggression. That's not patience. Patience is actually a very advanced state of mind. It's a very profound one, especially if you're practicing it, if you're angry. Because anger is so volatile, especially when it's strong, like I'm thinking in my mind since a kid, it's very volatile. I don't have to think, do I like something or not? I know immediately. So I'll respond, So patience is a practicing of greeting the problem instead of resisting it. That is really the most direct. So if in other words, simple example, you're driving the car and you've got to get to work and suddenly the red light turns up and you've got to shoot on the brake. You get annoyed, right? Join the universe here. You don't call that anger, but it's a mild level of anger, and it builds inside you. You build it up by the end of the day, and when you're exhausted, we don't pay attention until you want to kill somebody. It's so ridiculous. So that's anger. So the practice right there. Oh, relax, Wolfgang. Red's as nice a colour as green. Relax, it's cool. You just practice patience. You welcome the red light instead of cursing it. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
That's it. And we did this every day to the smallest baby examples. You'd be sorting, you're dealing with it sounds so corny, but you're dealing with things as they arise, and you're adjusting your mind to it. You're accepting the reality of it. If you can change it to green, please do so, Wolfgang. But we know we can't. But we don't realise we can also change our attitude towards it. We sit there frustrated, thinking it's normal. Do you understand?
Yes.
This is a simple level of practice.
Yep.
Don't wait till the wheels are falling off. Don't wait till you're about to kill somebody before you realise you've got aversion. These baby examples. But like I said, you don't go to your therapist because you get annoyed. Oh, shut up, Robina, go home. But annoyed is a symptom that'll build up into the rage eventually. Then you'll kill yourself or kill someone else. But we don't realise these things build up because we don't pay attention. We don't pay attention, Wolfgang. So this is where really when we get more developed, when you've got good concentration, you're not just, you see, normally speaking, typical, ordinary, unaware, victim mode, join the universe, that's all of us. I'm miserable, horrible boyfriend, hope he loves me, doesn't love me, maybe he loves me, he's not fair, oh he really, all this rubbish that goes on. All my attachment is a little hungry vampire in me craving for Sean to say the nice thing, do the nice thing, be the nice thing, because attachment believes he's the cause of my happiness. So I'm feeling frantic and miserable, up and down like a yo-yo. So I'm not aware in my mind. I get up in the morning, I'm noticing he's a bit grumpy, I freak out, I take it personally. All this drama's going on. All this drama all the time, right? Simple stuff. But I'm not conscious. And I'm in the car, and all this stuff's raging on, but I'm not conscious. And then the car jumps in front of me and I lose the plot. So if you begin to become paying attention to your mind, this is slow. You begin to pay attention. You begin to notice what's happening. You do your 3 minutes every morning maybe. Just you start the habit of stepping out of your head for 3 minutes and you watch your boring old breath. So the inevitable natural consequence would be that you start hearing your crazy thoughts. But you're glad to hear them, but you don't buy into them. For you attempt that, but you're not afraid of them. This takes time. This really does take time. because we're so afraid of what's inside us. We can't cope. So this takes time. So then slowly, when you're driving the car, you're not only conscious of the traffic, but you're actually conscious of the crazy stories, and you're dealing with them both simultaneously. So when the car does jump in front, you're ready for it, and you're not going to go crazy. This takes time, but this is the practice, slowly. Yeah.
Is this antidote, this patience,
Patience is antidote to anger, yeah.
the same like tolerance?
Yeah, in other words, tolerance. To tolerate. But sort of that to me seems quite heavy, but we've got to really look at the meaning of the word. It means greet the problem. Starting maybe the very beginning of practicing, you just got to kind of hold on, you know. That's okay. Slowly, as you get braver, as you practice this more and more, you get courageous. And I really think that's true. You get courageous because you're noticing it, and you're not resisting it, you're not thinking, I'm a bad person. And you become more courageous, and eventually, this advanced level, you greet the problem. I can handle it. Come on.
With
So-
the right
You know,
response.
listen to me. Martin Luther King, I found him an amazing example. Back in the 60s, when I thought Malcolm X was best, I thought Martin Luther King was a wiki, you know. Because I like angry people, you know. So I loved Malcolm X. Still love Malcolm X. I just thought he was amazing. Anyway, the point is, Martin Luther King, he blew my mind. He said, and you can tell he's a patient guy. You can tell he's got this sweetness, you know. Isn't it? He never raged and shouted and yelled. He didn't. He was quite different. But he said one time, this blew my mind, he said, it's good to be angry, meaning it's good to find fault. You've got to say there's racism, there's sexism, there's injustice. You know, that's the thing, you've got to say there's injustice. But then he said, and then you say, what can I do to help? But anger is just rage, stare, how dare, kill. But there is racism, there's sexism, and then you say, what can I do to help? That's how you channel and make it valid criticism. So that's patience. You're greeting the problem. What can I do to fix it? That's what patience brings. It's a very courageous state of mind.
What is the meaning of tolerance?
It's another word for it. It's
So
another word for
there
it.
is something wrong.
Yeah,
When
I just
do
said
you-
there's
yeah.
a suffering in the world.
Okay.
There's a war,
But I
okay.
tolerate it. I
So-
say,
no,
it's fine. I tolerate
No,
it.
no,
This is
you're
Sunday,
giving
this-
your own.
Isn't
You're
it
giving
easier,
your.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Isn't it easier to say pausing to maybe have a
Joni,
different response?
No, Jody, you can say that. That's perfectly fine. But I don't talk like that. You can talk like that. Nothing wrong with it. Perfect, darling. I'm talking in process, slowly, as you develop. So what I'm getting at, the word tolerate, it's one of the synonyms of patient. But I think it's got a heavy. Whatever, we give meanings to these words. We've got to look at them again. But if you're trying to practice tolerance or patience, anger is look at that war in Syria, or look at what Mr. Trump did, and then when the anger will start giving a commentary. He is this, he is that, he is a liar. How dare he do this? This evil. I mean, it might be your boss. I don't care who it is. But anger is just plain finding fault. There's no action. There's no solution. It's just raving on. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
That's anger.
Yes.
And now there might be an element of truth there. The point is, there is some truth there. It is a war in Syria. So saying there's a war in Syria, saying that is Joni, that is a name and it's accurate. But the anger is this extra dressing up on top that rages and how dare they do this, I'm going to kill these people, these are evil, these evil monsters. But there's no solution, it's like this raving on. But as Martin Luther King said, there is war in Syria. Don't rave on about it. Then next step, say, the first step is there is war in Syria. That's already patience. You tolerate, you're seeing, that's the fact. But the next one is the powerful action point, which is compassion. What can I do to help? So if you have anger, you never think you want to help, you want to destroy. But if it's patience, you're still seeing war. You're not being a gooey person. You still see this wrong, and you're going to get up there and you'll demonstrate, even if you get hit on the head. That's action, but it's coming not from anger. Yes?
And the tolerance, does it
I
mean
keep repeating, it's a synonym.
Yep, do I have to tolerate the war?
Did you hit, no, sweetie?
Tolerate means I
Volkan. Tolerance is a synonym for patience, but you have to redefine the definition because you're using it. The way you're talking, you've got your own definition, meaning put up with it. That's not the real meaning of patience. That's how we think of tolerate. Come on, you be tolerant. That means put up with it. It's like passive aggression. That's how I think we hear it. So go further than that. Go further than that, Wolfgang. Go further. Do you really agree there's bad things happening in the world?
yes.
Can you hear how a person who's merely angry, what would they do? You tell me, what would they do? A merely angry person.
Shouting, crying,
That's
complaining.
right. So then patience or tolerance, the meaning here, is that you do still see this war, but our mistaken understanding of tolerance is, oh, there's a war in Syria, never mind. That's throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That's not patience, that's passivity. That's called uncaring. So you're still right, there is a war in Syria. But you don't say, see, we think tolerate means, well, put up with it. Do you understand? So, but patience and tolerance, if it's really valid, is you see it, and if you can change it, then try. Now, see, this is the point now. What if you can't change it? Then you would tolerate it, because you can't change it. But you'd still keep working on it. The woman on death row, for 17 years, she put up with being in prison, but optimistically. She was in charge of her mind. She did practice patience. She did tolerate it, but she didn't become passive and say, oh, well, sit back with my feet up. She did something about it. Can you hear the difference?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Good. What else, people?
Yes. I have
So it's time to go for the 11 o'clock people. The tools for happiness may go now. We can go anytime you like. Goodbye, people. Thank you very much. See you later. Go on. Yeah, another question. Yeah. Say bye-bye.
Thank you for coming out today. I seem to be in some kind of a cycle of distraction.
Yeah.
I get easily distracted. Various things grab my attention.
Yeah, there you go.
Take me in.
That's it.
I get a chemical fulfillment from it.
That's right. Join the universe, honey. It's called Buddha calls it attachment. There's a little kid inside us that's always looking for something nice, and then it gets bored, then it tries something else. The function of attachment is to always be needy for something, always feel dissatisfied, therefore always needy for something, and then its function is always be busy thinking about it, then it gets always distracted all over the place, you know. That's the function. That's what Buddha will call attachment. It's multifaceted. So then, question?
Is it possible to be relieved of attachment?
It takes, this is what we're talking about, it takes time. Yes, that's the principle here, but it takes time. So it's really the deepest instinctive drive in us is this one. So we're dealing at the deepest level. So we've got to work at different levels. And that's why the very first level of practice, and it sounds kind of boring, let's just say, you see, so one function of attachment is the junkie level. When you get attached to alcohol, you drink so much, you become ridiculous. Attachment to anything so severe that you can't stop doing it. Is that part of the function for you, or is it just plainly getting bored and distracted?
No,
you get caught up.
It's pretty deep.
There you go. There's no, what's your name?
Pat.
Pat. It's not instantly fixed, and that's why we have to have courage to be working with it and living with it every day. So the very first level of practice, and this is where it's not easy, even this level, it's not rocket science. Our mothers and grandmas would tell us this, is discipline. So we make some decisions. Like we all know if you become a junkie or an alcoholic, because those objects, because they are very debilitating for the body, aren't they? I mean, addicted to porn all day or addicted like a friend of mine, addicted to video games. It doesn't affect your body too much. You don't walk around drunk. So we can see with alcohol or even cigarettes or certainly heroin, it really affects the body. So we can see the results are devastating. But we can all see the results of addicted to anything is devastating because your mind is completely obsessed with it. You want it all the time. You're thinking about it when it's not there. And you're desperate and you'll do anything to get it, which means you become selfish and neurotic and not very cool to live with. We all can see that. But the real one is to see the suffering it causes us, which you're recognizing. So there's no quick fix, and that's where there's a misunderstanding about meditation. Oh, it'll fix it. It's just beyond naive. It's ridiculous. We've got to start somewhere. And it's not easy. So we know if you're an alcoholic, the first step is to accept that you're a junkie, whatever words you like, and then you give it up. Now that's not easy sometimes. That's very extreme to us, especially if you're going to manage to survive in your life. And you sort of, keep your head above water. Many people even are able to stay heroin junkies and still manage to live their lives. But that's still kind of really second best. So when it's a really severe thing, we surely would know that. You've got to give it up. If you've got a boss that you want to kill every day, the very insensible thing is to leave that job. In other words, the very first level of practice is to recognize how overwhelming certain objects are for us. Don't blame the object, just know it's our crazy mind. Don't beat yourself up, but realize you've got to protect yourself. So if you've got a crazy kid who's always screaming and yelling, you've got to put them in a situation where they don't meet that object. I mean, it's sort of clear. We've got to be having this self-awareness. So it's not fair to yourself. We've got to make some strong decisions, in other words. So then that already is a powerful first step. But that's often very hard to make a decision to do. Or even by cutting it down. That's got to be the first one. Because you see, the levels of practice, even the way they structure it in Buddhism, the one we're discussing here of changing the mind, this is really more like high school. This changing your body and speech, controlling your behaviour, that's like junior school, but it's intelligent. It's reasonable. So it really means you've got to become accountable. We've got to be brave, because when we're so attached to something, it makes us panicked not to have it, doesn't it? We think you're going to kind of drop into the bottom of the ocean, you're going to lose something. So it's very scary to give up something that we're so addicted to, whatever it might be. Whether it's sex, whether it's a girl, whether it's your ex-wife, whether it's alcohol, whether it's our old habit, doesn't matter. This is the way we are. We all can see this. So the first step really is to slowly, don't push, recognize who you are, but and the process of doing this, Pat, remember that there are so many other good parts of you. We forget that. When we're overwhelmed by one thing that really harms us, it becomes massive inside us, and that's inappropriate. You're not out there killing people, Pat. You're not out there lying. You don't steal. You don't kill. You don't rape. Maybe you're junkie for this and junkie for that on whatever, because computers are so tasty, but you're harming yourself mostly. So when you're realistic and realise you're not as bad as you think, this is important, because we over-criticise ourselves brutally, Pat. This is a terrible thing against ourselves. So remember, you've got so many other good qualities. You wouldn't be sitting in this room even thinking about methods if you were a really, heavy-duty dude. Do you understand my point? You're at least not harming others. That's a good start. Do you understand?
Yeah.
This is really important to remember, because you balance your own view of yourself. Otherwise, your negativity looms large and we get depressed about it. And that's just double trouble. So we recognise what it is. It causes us pain. So that one of the first steps has to be the discipline of controlling it. And this is a sort of almost embarrassingly simple answer. This is the first step. It's the first step. What do you think? Does it make sense what I'm saying in relation to your own mind? You know your own mind.
Yeah.
And we've got to have that discipline, but it's scary to even do that. It's like if you eat normally one of the commonest things we're all addicted to is food, because the whole world does it, we don't think of it. Now we know it can be a problem, especially if you get obese. But if you don't get fat, people don't mind so much because you don't see the effect. But look at the bodies, look at the number of people, the amount of medical procedures people do on obese people, it's monstrous. So much money spent in this ridiculous country. I keep talking about this ridiculous insurance business, But it's really, you can see that we know there's no shortcut. If you eat too much, you've got to decide to change and not put things in your mouth. That means discipline. And that starts with your mind. But you're using your discipline to discipline your body and speech first. Then you can use your discipline to work on the mind itself. That comes later. You get my point? You hear my point? And slowly, Pat, don't beat ourselves up. We're bad. We're ridiculous enough as we are. Then we our own worst enemies, as my mother used to say. So keep seeing the good side as well, and even to think you want to change it is already incredible. Look how many crazy humans on this planet never even notice they're crazy and just blame everybody else. So it's already amazing that you're noticing, So but it's discipline. There's no shortcut. Honestly, there's not. And another interesting answer is, it's like if there's a kid won't let go of this thing here, well, you distract them by giving this thing here, they'll drop it. Well, we've got to use this energy and channel it into something useful. Channel it into something good, useful, that can be useful to others. And you're channeling that same energy that would make you crazy into something useful. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, thank you.
That's also helping you work with it. Because we can't be so brutal on ourselves. And this is the point the Buddhists use, we've all got this. This is normal human behaviour. Do you understand?
Yes.
Is that useful?
Yes, thank
Good, sweetheart. Good, Pat. Good, Pat. What else, people?
I got
Where are you?
right here.
Yes, go. Who are you? What's your name?
Bill.
Bill, go, Bill.
Okay, so the discipline, and the first step you're talking about is like the sitting still for 3 minutes a day, just start to invoke some.
Well, no, that's even more like working on the mind. That's still physical, though. It is true. The discipline, yeah, the discipline. That's okay. The discipline I'm really talking about here, that would be part of it. That definitely would be part of it. But that already has the advantage. If you sit for 3 minutes, just watch your boring old breath, you can't help but notice your mind. And that's helpful. Don't be scared of it. That's good. That is a discipline. That definitely is a part of it. Definitely. But the discipline I'm talking about is even more simple. And we talked about this yesterday. This seems almost crummy, It seems almost. Goodbye, Joni.
Thank you.
Goodbye, sweetheart.
I might have to take a
Goodbye,
puppy.
Goodbye, sweetheart.
Bye-bye.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. This is interesting. Okay, listen. Okay, the Buddhists, they talk about how we've got the mind, thoughts and feelings and emotions, and the body and the speech. Sort of obvious, but they really point these out. So the very first level of practice, the way they say it traditionally, is you control your body and speech. So I like to think of our body and speech as the servants of our mind, aren't they? So the little needy, oh, I'm so disappointed, what do I want? Oh, chocolate cake. My thought thinks it, then my hand goes and gets it. I think, oh, angry, how dare you, and I punch. I think, oh, I'd like that piece of cake over there, and I steal it. The body is the servant of the mind. So this is why the Buddhist one, we've got to pay attention here, because we don't realise we're just driven by our crazy thoughts. But we can see the end result is, even if our problem is mainly just sitting in your mind, and you have fantasies all day, then your mind is what you have to change, isn't it? But if your mind makes you go to your computer and tap this and go onto this website and look at pictures, it's still your body's involved, isn't it? If your mind wants cake, your body's involved by putting it in your mouth. If your mind wants to jump on girls every day, you've got to go get a girl. Which is a big drag. It's cheaper these days, like I said, with Tinder. You get free girls. It's much easier. I'm not being sarcastic, it really is. I heard. Tinder didn't exist in my day. Anyway, you get my point. So it's a drag. If you're sitting there all day just having crazy fantasies, like that story I told you, remember? The woman in Brooklyn got into her husband's computer. I saw this in the New York Times years ago. And she discovered, sorry Bill, I'm coming to your answer. She discovered that her husband was part of a cannibal site, all his cannibal friends, and that they were planning to kill and eat her.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so she got so shocked she called the FBI, not the police. So what I'm getting at is they probably didn't sit around killing too many people, eating them. They just lived in their fantasy world. So then you've got to start working on your mind then, don't you? So you're hearing my point here, Pat. So we've got the body and the speech that service what's in here. We don't notice most of the time. So that's why the cake keeps going in, you know. It's not enough to fantasise about cake, you've got to shove it in, right? So what I'm getting at is this. Are we communicating, or I say so many crazy things you can't follow me? Are we communicating? You're trying, Bill, I know.
Well, I'm trying, the nuts and bolts is what I'm like, because I continue to know these things and not...
No, okay, now good, Bill, thank you. So what you've got to have is the humility and the patience to know. You've got to start, you've got to first know the theory. Like the first know the theory of how to ride a bike, you're a little boy. Now you hop on, and you fall off, and you get on again, and you fall off, and one day you'll stay on. That's here too. So what's needed here is the patience of continuing to do it, not expecting immediate results. That's the suffering we have. We want the results to be immediate. That's a bit like going to the gym on the first day and coming home and thinking you'd suddenly look like Arnie Schwarzenegger. No, it's taking many, if not years. So that's, and I really sincerely mean this now, because this attachment in this junkie, when we face the pain, it also wants to be free of the pain. So we hope that this technique will make it all go away, but Bill, it won't go away overnight. So part of the process of practice is learning to live with this, but being confident that you're doing it, being confident that every day you won't succeed immediately. You won't be like, you won't look like Arnie overnight. You will not be like Lance Armstrong overnight, but you know you're on a long haul and you're doing the steps every day, and you have confidence that you're doing the steps. The results will come. So part of the process is learning to live with the practice, live with the failing, live with falling off the bike. Do you hear my point? And that's what takes courage. So the nuts and bolts are this. This sounds really corny. It's profound, actually. We talked about it yesterday. We have body and we have speech. Now, I think I've established, both of you, you don't go around raping too many people, killing, stealing, and lying. They're the heavy-duty things the world does with their body and speech. You guys don't do that. Am I right? And even if you look in your mind, you've got morality. You don't want to steal, lie, kill, rape, do you? So that you're pretty advanced already. So you should be so blissful how nice you are. Already you're ahead of the game. So now the next step is, therefore, we do have body and we do have speech. Now our body, what does it do? The heavy-duty ones Buddha says try and refrain from are killing, stealing, and jumping on wrong partners. Control our bodies with those. So if you already do those, you're ahead of the game. So let's extrapolate. What does that mean? That means control your body when it comes to the cake, control your body when it comes to the computer, control your body when it comes to listening to the football all day, or whatever the action is that needs one finger to press a button. That needs that, you control that, and you don't do it. That sounds simple, but that is profound. That's where the discipline is too. And it might, if the problem is you eat too much cake, so if you control yourself on other things, it helps you with the cake. They all work on the same way. So the thing is, the other one is now speech, and this is interesting. Some people don't speak much, and when they do speak, they're very careful. That's unusual. I would suggest we just vomit everything out all the time. We love to there's 4 things the Buddha suggests we try not to do with our speech. Don't say words that aren't true. That's so confusing. Don't rabbit on about nothing all day, which is what we tend to do. Don't use abusive language in front of people, and don't talk bad things about people behind their backs. Now, this might sound corny, but I was just talking yesterday about my family. But if we really refrained in one day from controlling our verbal energy, which comes from our crazy mind, you don't have words if there's no thoughts there. You just sound like a bird or a dog if you did. But we say words, which are thoughts. So we're vomiting out our crazy thoughts all day. That's going to affect us in every part of our life. So even controlling our speech, being cautious, and this sounds so corny, but it's quite a revelation. But we don't control our speech. We think, I'm allowed to say what I like. We rave on all day. Then, of course, you can't control your eating cake and watching porn. How could you? Because you're berserk energy. Are you seeing my point? Are you seeing my point, Pat? This sounds corny, but it's quite profound, really. If you in one day made a decision to not watch what you say, and I really mean it, the thoughts are all there. You want to vomit about that stupid guy at work or your bloody sister-in-law. You really control your words first, then you're harnessing your mind. And that'll help you with your whatever it is you're addicted to. Are we communicating it? It sounds corny, but it's quite profound if you put the two together, you know. Really control our body. Because also the other attitude, the Buddhist one about the compassion wing, you think that you're existing for others. On our own, this is our own internal practice. But when you're around others, this is what it sounds again like Pollyanna, but be conscious that others are there. So what I'm going to say should be helpful for them. Instead of just vomiting out our own junk all day, which is all we do. But we all put up with it. But what do you think? You're uncontrolling your own mind all the time. So it's not simple. It is simple, but it's a revelation because it can help in all parts of your mind. Are you with me here?
Yeah.
And that's the first level of Buddhist one. They talk about even keeping vows. You decide, I won't kill, I won't lie, I won't steal. It sounds kind of repressive, but it's really got intelligence to it. And then when you're really more together with your body and speech, which are the servants of your crazy thoughts, now you can start becoming more familiar and to harness the thoughts. This is the essence of Buddhist practice. It just takes time. But you've got to be prepared to know it's a long haul, be happy with your progress, recognise the rubbish, don't overstate your misery. We've got to be positive about ourselves. I'm really meaning that. And be delighted in your progress. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So starting with 3 minutes in the morning, nothing wrong with that. That's a good start. And then have a disciplined day. That's why we all know if you've got form and your house is in reasonable order, your car's in reasonable order, there's not chaos all around you. That's already pretty intense. Have a decent, chuck out your own rubbish. You know, if you're married and have babies, I always think that when you're dead, your poor children have to clean out your house. Well, clean out your houses now. Get rid of junk. Junk out. There's a symbol of junk in here. Do you understand what I mean? Have a disciplined external life. Not too anal about it, but these really all count. Because everything around us is an expression of ourselves. You with me, Pat? You with me, Bill? Are you with me, people?
Yes.
What are you doing? Time to go.
Lunch.